This particular video will be covering PI tips for engineers. Uh, First assumption is that you've been through the video for resume building, so that you at least have your basis for the preparation right. Moving on from there, for this particular video, we'll be taking a very crude approach, that is exactly trying to split the breakup as far as the marks are allocated for the personal interview is concerned. For this particular breakup, we did try to get in touch with a lot of HR consultants, certain colleges who give admissions to engineers, certain corporates who hire a lot of engineers. So effectively, this is a very indicative kind of a sample breakup, so that this gives you a direction about how to prepare for your interviews. It's 100 marks, which is to be broken up across 5 parameters. First thing is academics, which is 30 marks, extracurriculars 20, general awareness 20, statement of purpose 15, communication skills, body language, and some of them call it the X factor, with all the 3 constituting the remaining 15 marks. I'll take one parameter at a time and discuss at length and specific for engineers, so that we are on the same page. First thing about academics, the 30 marks which are there, there's a good effort made by the interviewers to understand what is the practical understanding that an engineer has for a particular subject. A lot of times the interviewer covers that distance of discomfort and tries to reach the student by asking him questions very specific and pertaining to the projects that he's done or undertaken. So let's assume that an electronics engineer in the 3rd or the 4th sem does a basic project, the 5th and the 6th sem does a little better project, and the last semester project, or certain universities have a last year dedicated to a project. Now here, questions related to what were the technologies used in the project, what is the scope of the project, practical applicability of the project, the number of people in that project, and what were your achievements in terms of the scope that you had defined versus what you eventually ended up achieving. Now the same thing for a computer engineer could go up to understanding the projects that he's undertaken, probably asking him for a couple of software ideas, looking at application for various things like Android or operating systems like iOS, open source, closed source, sometimes discussing programming tools like C, C++, Java, .NET. This is how the direction of engineer goes. Now academically, their other approach is to ask you for your favorite subject. So here let's assume that I'm a mechanical engineer. So for them, rather they like core subjects. That's what we call in engineering, right? So core subjects which are non-frill. So keeping aside maths, keeping aside other management subjects or the general subjects which are taught in the first year, keep all those things aside. The other things which you specifically learn about your engineering is what we call as core subjects. So let's assume that I'm a mechanical engineer. So a lot of times their expectation is to discuss thermodynamics, discuss refrigeration, discuss heat mass and transfer, probably machine design or theory of machines, or a couple of electives that come to us during the 3rd and the final years. A lot of times, it is lightly said that if you refer to the GATE curriculum also, it helps a lot as far as your technical preparation is concerned, because that is one of the top certifying neutral bodies as far as technical aptitude is concerned. Now I had taken up 3 examples which were roughly about computer engineers, electronics engineers, or mechanical engineers. You can extend it to other engineering. Very frankly, people like to test technical knowledge through core subjects, and a lot of times they do want to check some generic stuff which includes mathematics, because a lot of companies, let's assume the analytics companies or the companies that provide business analyst roles or consulting profiles, they like to check maths and the control over maths. This is where the academics is tested. A lot of times subsequent certifications taken by neutral bodies also play a very important role here. So for example, an electronics and communication engineer having certifications in MATLAB and PSpice, or a mechanical engineer having certifications in CAD CAM or ProE. On the other hand, a computer engineer having certifications in Oracle, or has participated in a couple of tournaments of Google, or probably tried ethical hacking or things like that, they all constitute to co-curricular learning, and these things indicate directly or indirectly about the practical understanding that you have of the same subjects. Moving on to the next parameter from there, which is extracurriculars, that is 20 marks. When I say extracurriculars, they like people to have an all-rounded personality. So things like leadership positions held in college. So you could just be anything. You could be a cultural secretary, you could be a sports secretary, you could be a general secretary, you could have had you could have been on the organizing committee of the best event of your college. All these things put forth your candidature as somebody who has a well-rounded personality. uh, Apart from this, a lot of them go for specific extracurriculars which are very personality driven. So I love to play sports, so probably I would have a lot of certifications on sports. I like cultural things, so probably certifications in dance or music or anything, or any hobby or any interest which I've pursued over certain years in a disciplined manner, and I have some neutral body certifying me. So probably a university, a state, a district, a national or an international level, even a participation or a victory certificate is something that attaches a stamp to the fact of my claim. That's about extracurriculars. From there I move to general awareness. Now this is something which people want you to have. So we know enough people who come to the college, go back, and probably that is their life. Whereas we if we look back at the last a year or so, we've had people like Narendra Modi, Kejriwal, or sports like cricket, football, kabaddi, or people at international scale like Trump, or probably the terrorism inflicted things of the Europe as well as the Middle East. All of these things dominating the news from time to time. Now if a person is just unaware about all these things which are happening, and probably even doesn't have opinions about something as huge as a demonetization, probably he doesn't deserve a seat in the organization or a seat in the college. This is how the companies or the HR guys like to evaluate a candidate. So undoubtedly the third important parameter is general awareness, which constitutes 20% of the weightage. Just reading newspapers, reading magazines of the last 6 to 7 months, and probably making it a habit. So there are some people who just prepare for the interview sake, but making it a habit makes you more ready in terms of acceptance from the corporate. The next parameter that I move to is SOP, which is statement of purpose. Statement of purpose, people roughly draft it as a very simple 3 questions. What are you right now? Where do you see yourself going into? And the third, where do you see this particular organization or the college fitting into your scheme of things? That's how broadly we define the statement of purpose. So if I am somebody who has very strong extracurriculars, I am somebody who has very strong curriculars, and I wish to apply for a research kind of a profile, and I wish to apply for an organization which will enhance and probably take my skills into consideration and give me a growth profile which is in sync with what I want. Now these are the things which people want as a clarity in SOP. Now undoubtedly, how is it checked inside an interview? They try to ask you some logical questions of how do you connect yourself to the organization. So here let me assume that I'm a computer and an IT engineer, and we know that mass recruitments happen in IT. So yes, they want to know where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? Where do you see yourself 10 years down the line? So do I have an appetite for staying in programming? Do I want to get into testing? Do I want to get into business analysis? Do I want to get into sales? Now all of these things, clarity about my future, where do I see myself, are the things which generally organizations look at and give you benefit for having a good clarity of thought. SOP is something which there is no definite way of answering this particular 15 marks, but a good introspection keeps you equipped enough to answer this part of the interview. The last of which is communication skills, body language, or the X factor. Now communication skills and body language, very frankly, again there is no typical path for crossing that thing. Rehearse questions, practice in front of some of your friends, practice English. A lot of them I have seen are those people who use improper words in English, are not able to package their answers properly. Now this is where is the distance which you have to cover for yourself is rehearse. The last is the X factor, which I have used, where a lot of HR consultants have gone on to explain this particular parameter, where they say that in case I have a sales profile on offer, and I see this person who is absolutely enthusiastic and over the table, over the top, he's trying to sell his ideas and putting up a genuine fight. Now this is the nature that I want. Yes, that means I want to give him a benefit of doubt for that particular profile. I cannot really go ahead and give a massive benefit, but yes, 15 marks is something which I can allocate even if he probably does not have the best communication skills on table. So these are things which people broadly try to cover as far as engineering is concerned. Moving on from there, The next part of the video, which is the most frequently asked questions. Please be prepared for these things. Things like, where do you see yourself 5 years down the line? Where do you see yourself 15 years down the line? What are your biggest strengths? What are your weaknesses? Here, I've seen that a lot of people try to camouflage their weaknesses. So, they'll try to put it sugar coated that I am poor with communication skills, but I worked a lot on it and now I am really good. I used to procrastinate a lot, but now I have a timer, or I keep a schedule for myself and I've improved a lot. Now, these are not things which are weaknesses. When they ask you for weaknesses, please introspect. Everybody has one, and they acknowledge the fact that you have one. So please be, frank enough to admit a weakness. Yes, it also comes with a certain regret that how are you trying to work on it, but don't try to cover it up very, very quickly. That's it about weaknesses. Strengths, in case people ask you for strengths and weaknesses, don't try to enlist say 6 to 7 strengths and probably have just 1 or 2 weaknesses. It should be in a certain proportion where it acknowledges your introspection of the same thing. Other things like who is your role model in life, because that talks a lot about how do you think about your career, about the people who you admire, and where do you want to be. Certain people, just to certain interviewers, just to fluster a particular candidate, might ask a couple of puzzles here and there. Now all of these questions try to gauge some or the other aspect. So 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, they see structure of thought and understanding of the industry, your strengths and weaknesses. They try to check how is your introspection. Asking you certain puzzles or certain quantitative questions to solve, they're trying to see how much do you think on your feet. So these are things which tell them about your attributes which you bring to the table, along with the preparation for the interview. The next part of the video is discussing the do's and don'ts of the interview. Frankly speaking, for the do's and don'ts, I have to go back and forth. Be in good formals. Have a good file which has certificates arranged in the descending order. So don't have certificates arranged in a haphazard manner. Keep one copy of the resume. Greet the interviewer as you walk into the cabin. Thank the interviewer when you leave that particular cabin once the interview is over. Maintain good eye contact. There could be certain patches of the interview where you do not know what is happening with you. It does not still mean that you get flustered. Sometimes they're just checking how much can you hold on to your composure, and don't try to fake something. So in case you do not know something, a good, confident don't know about an answer is a much better answer than trying to fabricate something which is fake inside the interview. And also remember that it's a relationship that you're getting into. So you fake yourself. A lot of times organizations might get impressed by what you've done on the table, but in the larger run, it doesn't translate into a long-term relationship wherein they see you as a potential growth candidate and you see them as the platform to grow. So be yourself, be confident, be prepared, and always go researched about the institute or the college that you're applying to. These are certain PI tips for engineers. For others, that is commerce and work experience, please look out for the same space. Thanks a lot and best of luck.